From crappie to bluegill, this episode is all about how to find and catch springtime panfish,
It's been a long, long winter.
That's fantastic.
including expert strategies, tips, and in-depth discussions for this time of year, as well as the latest fishing reports, must-have gear, and tackle recommendations. There's a lot of information from beginning to end. This is Angling Buzz, brought to you by Omnia Fishing, a smarter way to shop for fishing tackle. Well, spring is prime time for panfish. Both crappie and bluegill are fan favorites of all anglers, especially this time of year, and for good reason. They're in relatively predictable locations. And I think after a long winter, everybody is excited to go out and enjoy some open water fishing. Watching a float go down with a bite, well, that never gets old. And looking at locations, you know, shallow water bays and channels, that's where panfish are going to be moving into for the spawn. And when we think about weather patterns, this can affect how they move around. And they can move around very quickly. For example, a 3-day warming trend, schools of them can move up very quickly, very fast. And on the opposite end of things, the cold front can push them right back down into these deeper depressions. You can kind of think of them as highways that lead in and out of shallow water spawning flats. And today's show, we're joined by Wisconsin guide Jeff Evans to share his insights into springtime panfish. Jeff, thank you for joining us. How's the season progressing so far?
Hi, Troy. Well, we're just getting started. Like much of the upper Midwest, Wisconsin was just buried in snow this winter. But you're right. With the late ice out this year, it doesn't take but a few nice warm days to get all these panfish barreling up into that shallow water. First it'll be the perch, then it'll be the crappies, then it'll be the bluegills. And when I'm looking at a specific lake, I'll try to find a nice, shallow, dark bottom bay on the north side of the lake. Specifically, if I can find a nice boggy shoreline. Those north sides with those boggy shorelines tend to heat up quicker, and it doesn't take much. Just a half a degree can be a big difference with holding fish early in the season. And better yet, if you can find some submergent vegetation, whether it's old weeds from the season before or new weeds just starting to pop up, those areas will really be key places to target fish. But you do have to be ready for spring cold fronts. When those spring cold fronts come in, they can knock fish back out deep in a hurry, and you have to be ready to be on the move, using your electronics, trying to locate those fish somewhere between the shallow bay where you found them and the main lake basin where they came from.
Yes, that's very true. The whole fish finding process, that's so important. Now let's talk about baits. What are your favorite presentations for crappie and bluegill?
Well, Troy, one of my go-to presentations early in the season is running small plastic underneath a slip bobber. What I've got here is a 32nd ounce jig head with a small plastic and 1/8 ounce sinker and my slip bobber. Now, if you find super aggressive fish that are really hungry, one of my favorite things to do is switch over to a suspending jerkbait like a Rapala X-Wrap. This is a number 4-inch wrap, a number 6 could work as well. And when you find those really aggressive fish that are shallow, that can be a really fun way to catch a bunch of them. Now, if you find yourself in cold front conditions that knock those fish out deeper and you've located them on your electronics, one of my favorite lures in that situation is a Rapala Slab Wrap. This is a number 5. After I've located those fish, I'll cast to them and I'll let that slab wrap go all the way to the bottom, and then I'll work it back slowly with a lift and drop presentation.
Okay. Jeff, next weekend is Wisconsin opener. Can you offer any tips for walleye, bass, or pike?
You bet, Troy, and you're right. The late season and late ice out are definitely going to affect fish patterns early, and I would suspect you're going to catch most of your fish shallow. For walleyes, I focus on less than 10 feet of water near spawning areas like rocky and gravel points or rocky and sandy shorelines. Good baits to use are going to be baits like Rapala Rip and Wraps, heavy hair jigs, or even crankbaits. For pike, I would focus on shallow spawning bays in less than 5 feet of water in and around vegetation. Good baits to use are going to be jerk baits, spoons, or spitter baits. For bass, I would target areas near the first drop-off towards deeper water. Good baits to use are going to be heavy jigs that you can slowly bang along the bottom, or deep suspending jerk baits, or even light hair jigs. I hope everybody has a great start to their season and catches a bunch of fish.
Thanks, Jeff. We appreciate your time and sharing some insights into spring panfish. Up next is our Timely Topics feature. We're diving even deeper into spring panfish strategies with Lindner and Ty Sjodin.
There we go. There's one. There's one, Al. This is what we're looking for. Nice crappie. Nice crappie.
Good one.
Oh, there we go. Oh, huh? Look at that. It's been a long, long winter, and we'd head out to one of my old stomping grounds. I've been fishing this lake for all my life, and we're just on a flat. It comes from deep water up onto a flat, and these fish just stack up on there. Look at that dandy, big old silver side. There she goes, there she goes. That's what we're talking about.
This is a little better one too. It might be bigger than the other one.
Another netter.
Yeah.
But we're getting some use out of this net
Oh yeah.
today.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, no, this is a good
There you
one.
go.
Really a good
Oh,
one,
wow,
Ty.
nice fish.
Really a good one.
Now you're catching up.
You betcha I am. Look at that, huh? And the magic hour hasn't even started yet. Wind laid a little bit. The sun's got that water cooking. And the crappies are cooking up too. They're loving what they're seeing, and it's just going to get better and better and better as the day goes on. Love this time of the year. Love it. Love it. And this float, no matter how old you get, there's something magic about seeing that thing go bloop down and catching a crappie with it. It just never ever gets old.
There we go. Crappie. Nicer one again. Just working that edge. Staying away from the crowd. Look at that, another dandy. Jeez, look at those tanks. Wow, those are fun. Fun, fun fish. Look how fat they are. If you think about it, these fish are probably in this area because it's 6 to 10 feet, right? Just a flat. These fish have probably been in here for quite a while. Getting ready, they're eating minnows and bugs and whatever else, but we're talking 43 water temp and they're just getting really active. Look at how fat she is. She's gonna spawn and make a bunch more.
Just another nice one.
Another eater.
Yeah. I haven't been able to call for, this one was starting to get edible, but not quite. Not quite.
Nothing wrong with that one, Al.
No, I know that. No, really nice fish. Yeah, I got to tell you a story. You know, I never use live bait. Never, for anything. And I haven't used live bait for crappies for over 60 years. 60 years. Let me tell you a story. I grew up fishing the lakes in between Chicago and Milwaukee. And there's a whole bunch of lakes in there, the chain of lakes, and they're excellent fishing. And when I was a kid in there was a jig that was available in that area. It was called the Pinky Jig. And I learned how to fish it along with all of the locals. It was in all the bait shops, and it had a pink head and a white calf tail out of it. And you I learned at that point in time, you don't need minnows. You just can use artificial baits. And then when I moved to Minnesota, where we live now, and I started guiding after I got out of the military, there was an old guide here. His name was Gene Shapinski. And he made a jig, and it was called a quiver jig. And it was a floss jig. And I started fishing it here again and seeing what all the local guys that got in on this thing. And you didn't need bait to catch these things. And it's still the case today. I'm positive you do not need minnows ever, ever.
You know, you really cut it when you're looking for these fish in the spring, and you're really cutting down your time of actually searching for these crappies by having a good GPS, a good Lake Master card of the lake that you're on. And you can highlight the different regions. We're really focused on 6 to 8 feet. So as you can see, I've highlighted all this red area that really cuts it down. So you're looking at these points, look at all these areas, you're really narrowing your search down. And then you go in and you look for the weeds. So we know where we want to focus. So you go to this spot, this spot, and look for these tall, thick weeds. And that's where those crappies are really concentrated on this time of year. And then you go to work.
Oh, feels like a better one. Oh yeah, good,
yeah.
Real nice one, real nice one. You could see it really far out. Look at the size of that fish.
That's a fun way to fish. No live bait needed. You can cover a lot of water and catch fish just with a simple float and a jig.
It's time for this week's Buzz Bite Reports. To kick it off, we're going to head to North Dakota with Jason Mitchell.
You know, we're just starting to lose ice on Devil's Lake. I mean, there's a lot of ice still on Devil's Lake, and goodness, I mean, there's been people ice fishing on Devil's Lake right up until the very end of April. And the coulees and the channels are starting to open up, and so we're starting to see a few fish get caught. There's been a few big fish get caught. Overall, it's been slow so far, but this should turn around any day. I mean, by the time you're watching this, it could be happening. You know, but the water temperatures are still pretty cold. So you look at Devil's Lake right now, you know, the best fishing is shore fishing, you know, or wader fishing. And so casting a lot of basically paddle tails, just an impulse paddle tail, the MVP jig, or you can buy these mimic minnows that are pre-packaged, okay? But white chartreuse, you know, bright colors seem to work pretty good. A lot of times this water can be pretty dirty. It's just a matter of trying to find current, trying to find some rock. And so that's the program on Devil's Lake right now, is the people who are catching fish from shore.
Thanks, Jason. Now let's head to Alexandria to check in with Joe Segura.
As you can see, it's a little warmer here than you would have imagined for Alexandria. It's because we're down on Pickwick Lake in Alabama with the Alexandria bass fishing team. We fished earlier this year down in Florida and did pretty well down there. 34th out of 240 down there. I think we ended up with 91st today out of 240. So we had a few flat tires and a broken down truck and a prop issues, but we still finished well above the halfway mark, and real excited for that finish. And it's fun to be down here, setting the hook on some bass, getting to see some open water. Something we haven't been able to do for a while up in Alexandria. So up in Alexandria, the ice is pulling away from shoreline pretty well, so the ice is getting pretty rotten up there. I would expect in the next week or so that we would have some open water up in that area. So I would think we'd have a nice week or so for the water to warm up before opener. I would expect opener to be fairly decent if that's the case. So let's cross our fingers for some open water, and we'll be on it soon enough up in Alexandria.
Thanks, Joe. Now let's head north to Leech Lake.
We're up here now. As you can see, the smaller lakes, the water's starting to show as the ice breaks away from the shorelines, and that's good news because it won't be long we'll have docks here on these smaller lakes, and that's where the first action's going to be. Those panfish, those crappies, and those bluegills, and some of the shallow spots where the perch are. It's going to be where the bite is up here in the Leech Lake area. The big water yet, it's pretty Loctite, but the smaller lakes here around the area, and some of the smaller parts off of Leech Lake, the north end bays, some of the marinas by the resorts, and the Shingaby Island area, those waters will open up sooner, and of course some of the smaller lakes in the area too. So the fish should be in the deeper spots just off the weed edges where they typically go towards the spring. Bobbers, fathead minnows, or crappie minnows, and worms, waxworms. You know, simple fish, and find them, set up on them. A selective harvest, of course, let some of those big ones go, but it's all about the ice right now in Leech Lake. That's the report.
Thanks, Toby. Now let's check in with Billy Rosner on Lake Vermilion.
Lake Vermilion's fishery out of Tower, Minnesota just released their survey report for 2022, and everything's looking really, really good. I'm going to read you a couple statements out of this quick. The East Vermilion walleye catch rate was 16.9. Also on the west side, it was 16.1 fish per net, which was nearly identical to the previous last two surveys. So that's really great news. We got some really nice age class of fish coming up. And then also, the catch rates of the 20-inch and larger fish remain above the historical medium too. So those make those memorable catch opportunities that everybody's looking for those walleyes when they're on vacation.
Thanks, Billy. Now let's head over to Michigan and check in with Captain Chad Diltz.
We couldn't be more excited to get into the first week of May. You know, here in northern Michigan, we just had our trout and walleye opener, which has really opened up some opportunities for our anglers to get into our inland lakes and take advantage of a really good bite. You know, the fishing down in the Detroit River for walleye is really excellent right now. We additionally had a fantastic steelhead season, but part of the warming trend we had 2 to 3 weeks ago, it really ended that season early, kind of tricked those fish into thinking that the spawn was over, and a lot of those fish retreated back to Lake Michigan. But with that, it opened up a lot of opportunities on the near shore fishing of Lake Michigan. Brown trout, lake trout, as well as some early spring coho and salmon are being caught in our region. We're really excited to have a fantastic spring. We want everybody to get a fishing license and get out there and get bit.
And now it's time for our cool products brought to you by Omnia Fishing. We're going to start out with the Bubba 6-inch Ultra Flex fillet knife. This is perfect for smaller fish like crappie and bluegill. It's 11 inches long. You have a 5-inch handle, a 6-inch blade. This has titanium nitride coating. That's really an extreme hard ceramic material, which means this is very durable and also is going to last a long time. It also has flexibility, so you can cut around the rib cage, cut around the tail section to ensure you get the best fillets for smaller fish. The 6-inch Ultra Flex blade from Bubba. And next, the Lindner Panfish Special from Big Bite Baits. This is a 3/32 ounce jig, no live bait needed. You can fish this right out of the package. You get 5 jigs per pack. You see it has a hard plastic body with a feathered tail, so even the slightest rod action, you get some great movement at the back of the bait. You can fish this underneath a float. You can cast it out and reel it in. This is great for crappie all season long, but especially during the springtime. From Big Bite Baits, the Lindner Panfish Special Jig. And for fishing line, this is Suffolk's Nano Braid. This is available in a number of different pound tests. 4 and 6 pound tests is great for panfish and also trout. Has a very small diameter. This thing can cast small baits like jigs, crankbaits, jerkbaits very, very far, and the near zero stretch allows for great hook sets. And also with this, you can see it's kind of bright, so you can also use this as a strike indicator. This is fantastic line for panfish, Suffolk's Nano Braid. And next, the rigged gumball jig minnow from Northland Tackle. This is 1/16 ounce, perfect size for panfish. And as you can see, a really good shape here. You can fish this under a float. You can cast it out and reel it just as it is. It comes with 2 fully rigged jigs as well as 2 bodies that you can put on there. And also one thing I do want to note is to fish these horizontal. So make sure that your line tie is perpendicular to the bait, so when you're casting it out, it sits like this. You're going to catch a lot more fish. And there's also the gumball rigged swim bait as well. But for panfish, 1/16 ounce is perfect. You can go up to like maybe 1/8 ounce if you're fishing for big slab crappie. And lastly, from Blackfish, the Torrent rain jacket and bibs. This is 100% waterproof. It features EquiDry technology. What that does is a layering system in here. It keeps water out at the same time, letting heat and vapor escape. You have a vented hood here, very comfortable cuffs that cinch down and keep water from getting up into your sleeves. Waterproof zippers. The bibs feature a non-slip shoulder straps here. Also, there's a waist cinching system that takes the pressure off your shoulders, and the way this bib is designed and sewed around the area and the knees up into here, it's very comfortable when you're sitting down. The weather is unpredictable, so this is a great jacket, top and bottom, that you can use all season long here in the upper Midwest. For these products and many more, visit omniafishing.com. And up next, it's time for our technique of the week.
Hi there, Brian Brosdahl here. I want to show you one of my favorite panfish rods that I use a lot of times in spring, summer, and fall. Panfish are one of my favorite fish to fish for, and my true love. And my panfish rod of choice is an Avid 8-footer. Now it's a longer rod, but you can really flip a small bobber, a light rig out really far. When I'm searching, I'm throwing a little feather jig like this, sometimes with a small minnow or a small waxworm, but I'll pitch that out and let it settle and then twitch it and then move it. And if there's any emergent vegetation around, you flip right in there, and the 8-foot rod allows you to drop it right in. And a small Northland light bite bobber, they have that brass grommet so braid slips right through. I like braid. It cuts the wind. If there's any breeze or slight wind, it's hard to throw something light, and that cuts it off. I'll put a small swivel and then a fluorocarbon leader. I make sure if I'm using 10-pound braid or 8-pound braid, I'll go to a 5 or 6-pound fluorocarbon leader so I can break it off. This Avid's really nice. It's got backbone. Couple it up with a 2000 series reel, but the eyes are actually designed for light line. They have a slightly V shape to the bottom, so when you're pitching, your line flows off without slapping the rod as much, so you get farther distance. And when you're fighting fish, it's in the true parabolic bend that it has to be because of the shape of the eyelet. I'm really impressed with the Avid's cork handle. It fits your hand in many positions, whether you're craning big panfish out of the emergent weeds. When you set the hook, you get them up on the surface and fight them in. This handle gives you the grip that you need to really give it some good beef when you're doing it. And I love the split grip, because sometimes if I'm just fishing closer to the boat, I like to have my pinky back on that. And then just having past the split grip up into your forearm is really nice. And it just feels really good. So a simple rig, bobber, a swivel, and a little feather jig, or a piece of plastic like Impulse plastic goes a long way. St. Croix really hit a home run here.
It's so important to have balanced equipment. And bro, he knows panfish from open water to ice. We can all help stop the spread of aquatic invasive species. Remember, anytime you leave any body of water, clean, drain, dry. We have a great sweepstakes going on. There's a link in the description below to enter. You could win a guided fishing trip up on Lake Vermilion with myself. It's all expenses paid, a great stay at one of the resorts, as well as a tackle pack hand-selected by Omnia Fishing. There's links below in the description for products featured on today's show, and let us know in the comments if you have any questions you would like answered. And here's another video from AnglingBuzz.